Welcome to the Aftershock. The Earthquakes with the 2-1 victory over Real Salt Lake. You had the Golasso from Rubio Rubin and the brace from the legend Chris Wondolowski. I got Alex Morgan and Colin Etnire from Quakes Epicenter here with me, and we are going to have Matias Almeyda and Chris Wondolowski with us in the press conference tonight. Thumbs up from Alex Morgan. That means yes. Guys, your general takes after the resilient 2-1 victory from the San Jose Earthquakes. What do you think there? Colin, you got your mic ready to go. What do you got to say?
I mean, Phil, we called it, right? 2-1. That was in the pregame. We said that's how it was going to go. Now, of course, Phil and I both called it for RSL, so we got it dead wrong. Alex was probably the most Quakes optimistic and went with the 2-2, which is a totally valid guess to have, especially given the way
Ane Patel was on it.
Oh yeah, I think Ane was the most optimistic of all of us. I mean, this is a bit of a smash and grab because they were not. This is not a Quakes team that was at their sharpest. This is not their best performance. But they held on. They dug in, and but it's funny if you look at the sheet after the match of the XGs here. Both Wondo goals are going to look like they're high XG because he has a tap in from I think less than 6 yards out, and he has the header in between the center backs, also probably about 6 yards out. It's going to look like those are both gimme chances, but there are not a lot of forwards in the league who put themselves into the position to get that to happen in the first place. This is not an example of a striker converting a high percentage chance that was made for him. Both of those are positions where he got into the position, he made that for him. Those are just two bits of magic out of nothing. I mean, it's a joy to watch this guy at 38. It's a joy to watch this guy at any age. What a joy.
And you know what? He fully took advantage of Eric Holt being in there in his first MLS match of the season, his first minutes of the season, his first minutes, as we said in the pregame discussion on the Twitter space that we had for Quakes Epicenter, that Holt had not seen the field since October of last year, and Wondo completely eats him for breakfast and gets 2 goals off of him because both times Eric Holt was ball watching, if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being Eric Holt getting thrown into the game, going up against Cade Cowell for the first 80 minutes. Cade Cowell, an absolute beast. He's physically bullying you all game. And then, 75-minute mark, you have to face Chris Wondolowski now. You're tired. You've been running this whole game, and Chris Wondolowski is just coming in and preying on you in all those spaces. And I actually think that's what makes this Quakes team really dangerous offensively now, is that they have a ton of different weapons. You start Cade Cowell up top, he tires the defense. Then you put on Chris Wondolowski as the super sub. You also have Carlos Fierro in there, who played a beautiful ball into Chris Wondolowski for the second goal. That cross was just immaculate. You have Christian Espinosa, you have trophies, you had Andy Rios contributing in the last little bit there. And so to have all these different options is something they haven't had before. And that's what makes them so dangerous offensively. I think, this offense enough to take them to the playoffs. And if the defense can hold up this season, I think they have a good chance of going pretty far this year.
Alex, I want to note, you mentioned Andy Rios. I think that was an incredible read from him on the pass to Shea Salinas on the first goal. So we had the play swung from the right side by Eric Remedi to the center. Christian Espinosa finds Andy Rios in the middle, right? In a 9 position, essentially. He has to hold up the play, find the pass, or take a shot on goal, which he didn't have. He sends the ball out to the left to Shea Salinas. Shea Salinas finds Carlos Fierro, who takes quite a hit onto the goal. And Chris Wondolowski is just ready for the rebound, right? So you got to give Andy Rios all the credit there for finding that pass to Shea Salinas in a really tight spot. I want to go back and frame this really quickly. Okay, as the host, I feel like I didn't do this first. The Earthquakes flew into Real Salt Lake today. We're talking about a 4,000-foot elevation change from San Jose, which is at 82 feet elevation, to Sandy, Utah, which is at 4,450 feet elevation. Now, I mean, just flying on a plane in a day, the dehydration issues, the the possible muscle strains and cramps, the things that we have to deal with as non-athletes, these guys have to deal with too, just as much, right? So they come in here and they're ready to play. And what's incredibly impressive from a lot of these players, guys like Eric Rometty, Jackson Yule, is from the first minute of the match, they were ready to play and they ran full on 100% and taking it to RSL.
I mean, yeah, they ran their butts off and they worked all game, and that's how they were able to pull out a result. But I wouldn't exactly say that they looked very strong all game. I thought they looked really stretched out in the first half. I thought that RSL were definitely the team pushing the tempo and controlling the game for the majority of the match. In the first half, frankly, the Quakes looked pretty sloppy. I mean, they were misfiring crosses. They were giving the ball away. If you look at RSL's goal, I mean, it was a gorgeous, incredible bicycle kick from Ruben, and he deserves all the credit in the world for that. And I mean, there's probably not much the Quakes could have done about that bicycle kick itself, but the throw-in from which they conceded that bicycle kick, it was just Marcos Lopez passing the ball right out of bounds, like a 60-yard mishit pass. And, I think that was sort of representative of how the Quakes played in the first half. They looked, really stretched. And Matias Almeyda was complaining. I think in part he could see that coming. In his midweek press conference, he complained. He went on a long tangent about how difficult it is to travel on game day. So I think Matias Almeyda could kind of see it coming because of how much the man marking system demands from his players to have to travel to 4,500 feet elevation and play in the same day. Is really challenging and really demanding. And I think you could see the Quakes struggle with that in the first half. But I mean, it's testament to the fitness that he has, that they were able to keep going all the way until the end.
Oh man, you had such a good rebuttal to everything I said until the last thing, which is it's a testament to the fitness, which really the Quakes were very fit out on the pitch, taking it to RSL. But also, and this is another counter to the point, Alex. Like I agree with some of the things that you just said. But if you look at the possession stats, it really was the mistakes. That's all it was the mistakes that allowed RSL into this game, because they did dominate in possession in the first half and in the second half. There were some mistakes, but however, it just took like a world-class goal for RSL to even get on the board. Let's keep that in mind too. Without that, I mean, I don't know. You can never determine what's going to happen if a goal is or isn't or is scored. But without that goal, the Quakes have a clean sheet, right? So there's that too.
Well, we should give credit where credit's due. Sometimes it's obviously when you're covering a team from one side, we focus on the Quakes part of the equation, right? Which is really sloppy passing, which is absolutely true, particularly in the first half. It did seem like a little bit like the pitch took some getting used to for the players, because the way the ball was skipping right off of it, and there was a lot of loose touches and like. But we do have to give credit to RSL. They came out with a real aggressive press in a way that I think that we probably weren't expecting, because they are generally a lower block team. But they clearly decided that we're going to get in the Quakes space early. We're going to press them high up the pitch. And so you see the sloppy passing with Marcos Lopez, and with Tanner Beeson too, had a lot of sloppy passing early on. In part, that's on them. They have to be a bit sharper to win. But it's also in part due to a very effective press from RSL. And I just, there's kind of two sides to that equation. Obviously, the press loosened up over time, and it started to break down, and there started to be some gaps, and that's when San Jose found a few better routes forward. But a lot of those mistakes were kind of forced errors rather than unforced. Some of them were unforced, but there was more forced errors in there than perhaps you might have thought.
And I agree with that, Colin. We totally weren't expecting RSL to press the Quakes that high. But I also want to give credit to Marcinkowski, because he had some good saves in there. And I think we're about to go to Matias Almeyda for the press conference right now.
Joined by head coach Matias Almeyda. We'll start by taking a few questions, followed by a few more in Spanish with no translation. Let's go ahead and get started with Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Matias, congratulations on the victory tonight. It was a pretty wild ending, something that we've seen over the years from the Earthquakes. But what did you feel about the game overall, and how your team played? And obviously, what are your reactions?
I think we're all set.
Pedro, can you hear us?
Yeah. You allowed?
Okay. Alicia, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Sure. I guess I'll start over. Congrats on the victory tonight, Matias. Wanted to ask about the way the game kind of panned out. It seemed like it was kind of a roller coaster for the Earthquakes, and RSL gave you quite a test, but in the end, you came up with the victory. What did you think about the overall performance for your team, and what did you make of the comeback at the end?
Quería preguntar sobre el partido. Obviamente sale que estuvo fuerte y que el partido fue como una montaña rusa para los Quakes. Quería preguntarte qué pensabas sobre el partido y más que nada de cómo dio vuelta el partido el equipo.
Ante todo, buenas noches.
Firstly, good evening.
Sabíamos del rival que es un rival duro, difícil,
We knew that the opponent was tough and difficult.
que había ganado sus 2 primeros partidos
They won their first 2 games.
y el partido estaba parejo
The game was even
hasta que en ese lateral, faltando 1 minuto para que terminara el primer tiempo, ellos convierten un gran gol
until 1 minute to go in the first half. In that throw-in, they scored a great goal.
y después creo que el segundo tiempo nosotros mantuvimos nuestro orden,
And I think in the second half, we kept order.
todos los riesgos que había que tomar
We took the risks that we had to take.
y realmente le agradezco a este grupo de jugadores que entreno todos los días por su predisposición,
And I thank the players that I coach every day for their willingness,
por su entrega, por sus ganas,
for their devotion, their desire,
por sus convicciones,
for their convictions,
pero sobre todas las cosas por la humildad que tienen.
but more than anything else, the humility that they have.
Y creo que el equipo fue creciendo,
And the team has been growing.
creyó que podía ganar el partido
They believed that they could win the game,
y tuvimos nuestro premio.
and we had our reward.
Thank you, Matias. Next question from Alex Morgan.
Unmuted.
Hi, Matias. Thank you for speaking with us tonight, and congratulations on the win, obviously.
Thank you.
Chris Wondolowski comes on in the second half and scores the 2 goals to win the game. I mean, what can you say about a performance like that? He comes over and celebrates with you a bear hug, and it just feels like he can keep scoring these goals forever.
Muted.
Felicidades por el partido. Entró Wondolowski en el segundo tiempo y metió los 2 goles y vino y te abrazó. ¿Qué sentí de Wondo? Que es como que se siente que puede seguir metiendo estos goles por siempre.
Sí, creo que le agradecí a él como a todo el grupo recién.
I just thanked him like I did with the whole group.
Realmente están cubriendo un lugar en mi vida que me dan felicidad.
They're really covering a part of my life where they're giving me happiness.
Toda mi familia grita cada gol como si jugara yo.
All my family celebrates each goal as if I'm playing.
Y ellos están cubriendo una parte difícil que estoy transitando yo.
And they're feeling a difficult part that I'm experiencing.
Y con esa entrega que tienen, con esa predisposición,
And with that devotion and willingness,
cada uno aporta su granito de arena
all of them give their grain of sand.
y realmente no puedo dejar de agradecerles, de estar orgullosos de ellos,
And I really can't stop thanking them and being proud of them
en nombre mío y en nombre de mi familia.
under my name and my family's name.
Chris se prepara todos los días
Chris, every
con-
with this conviction and keep on scoring,
y con una parte muy positiva de apoyar a quien le toca jugar
and with a very positive part where he supports whoever's turn it is to play,
y dejando el alma como les pido cada vez que le toca entrar.
and he gives his soul like I ask for of them every time it's his turn
Es
to come on.
merecido que él haga estos goles
He deserves to,
porque es la leyenda nuestra que aún sigue convirtiendo.
because he's our legend that keeps on scoring.
Thank you, Matias. We'll go back to Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Matias, you have a game on somewhat short rest coming up next, and it's against the Seattle Sounders, a team that's been a little bit difficult for you over the past couple of years. I know that you're probably need some time to decompress from this game, but what are you looking to improve upon ahead of the next game?
Hay un partido con poco descanso ahora el miércoles contra Seattle, un equipo que ha sido difícil enfrentar en los últimos años. Sabe que tal vez necesitas un poco de tiempo de descomprimir este partido, pero ¿qué buscas para mejorar, para prepararte para ese partido?
Bueno, en principio nosotros tenemos que regresar a nuestra ciudad, a San José,
First, we got to go back to our city, San Jose,
descansar,
and rest,
disfrutar este día,
enjoy this day.
y ya a partir del domingo empezamos a trabajar con lo que respecta al partido del miércoles.
And starting on Sunday, we'll start to work regarding Wednesday's game.
Es importante que cada uno de ellos descanse y se recupere.
It's important that they all rest and recover.
Y bueno, veremos después sabiendo que todos los rivales para nosotros son difíciles.
And then we'll look into it. As we know, every opponent's difficult,
Trataremos de ser competitivos con Seattle.
and we're going to try to be competitive with Seattle.
Thank you, Matias. One last question in English from Alex Morgan.
Unmuted.
Hi, Matias. Can you talk about the substitutions that you made in the second half? You know, you go into halftime down 1-0. It looks like the team is struggling. But then you say you're taking risks in the second half to bring on a lot of offensive players. How did you sort of plan that out going in the second half?
Muted.
Vos hablaste un poco del riesgo que tuviste que tomar para dar vuelta al partido. Entraste en el entretiempo y el equipo le estaba costando un poco. Si puedes hablar un poco de los cambios que metiste, que eran cambios ofensivos, y cómo planificaste para meter esos cambios.
Sí, nosotros creo que el primer tiempo estaba dentro de todo, estaba parejo, porque había llegada de los dos lados, por ahí ellos habían tenido un travesaño.
I think regarding the first half, it was even because both teams had their chances. They had a shot that hit the crossbar.
La jugada del gol de ellos viene de un intento de salir jugando nuestro, que convertimos una jugada en lateral.
Their goal-scoring chance from their first goal came from a play that we tried to play out of the back and we gave away a throw-in.
Y después obviamente entra la virtud del rival y hicieron un golazo realmente.
And then obviously the virtue of the opponent, they scored a great goal.
El segundo tiempo, en el entretiempo, les pedí que mantengan la calma, el orden,
And then at halftime, I told them to stay calm and keep order.
y corregimos algunos puntitos que veíamos que se podía mejorar.
And we corrected some small points that we saw that we could improve.
Y cuando digo, por eso te agradezco que me hagas esta pregunta, porque realmente lo analizaste bien al partido.
And I thank you for asking me this question because you really analyzed the game well.
Perdiendo 1-0, nosotros quedamos con un defensor que era Flo,
We were down 1-0 and we were left with only one defender who was Flo,
un defensor que era Becasi,
a defender Abekasis,
y después todos los jugadores eran todos ofensivos.
and then all the other players were offensive players.
Entonces tomamos riesgos
So we took risks
y tuvimos nuestro premio.
and we got our reward.
No siempre sale así esto,
This doesn't always work out this way.
porque el riesgo que tomamos era grande,
It was a big risk that we were taking,
pero estábamos convencidos que lo podíamos lograr.
but we were convinced that we could achieve it.
Cuando yo les digo que los jugadores que entrenamos nosotros todos corren y todos juegan, es para estas ocasiones también.
When I say the players that we train, that everybody runs and everybody plays, it's for these sort of occasions.
Se adaptan en varias posiciones, que es lo que entrenamos,
They adapt to play several positions, which is what we practice.
pero yo era consciente que estábamos tomando un gran riesgo.
But I was aware that we were taking a big risk.
Pero también era consciente que lo podíamos dar vuelta.
But I was also aware that we could come back.
Por suerte salió bien.
And fortunately, it turned out well.
Thank you, Matias. We're going to take 3 questions in Spanish, starting with Carlos Justiz.
Matías, buenas noches. Primero que nada, felicidades por el resultado. Tú siempre no te dejas llevar simplemente por el resultado. Creo que una de las cosas, y un poquito haciendo eco a lo que dice Alex, fue el hecho de que no se bajan los brazos y mentalmente fueron muy fuertes y hubo mucha paciencia para seguir ejecutando el plan que al final de cuentas se veía bien, pero bueno, pues un golazo te había cambiado el resultado, ¿no? Y creo que eso es lo más positivo de la noche, ¿no?
Sí, realmente, sobre todo en el fútbol, cuando te hacen un gol un minuto antes de que termine el primer tiempo, es como que te da ese balazo de agua fría. Pero bueno, yo les dije que esté tranquilo, que el partido estaba abierto y que lo jugáramos con la mentalidad de un 0-0 que queríamos ir a ganar el partido. No que íbamos perdiendo. Con la mentalidad de un 0-0 que se podía ganar el partido. Pero bueno, también estábamos expuestos a un segundo gol de ellos porque tienen grandes jugadores, un buen sistema de juego, pero lo pudimos contrarrestar. Y bueno, sobre el final tuvimos nuestro premio, gracias al orden, al sacrificio, y yo remarco mucho la humildad de este grupo porque realmente dejan todo en cada jugada y bueno, eso es San José, eso somos nosotros.
Thank you, Matias. Next question from Carlos Ramirez.
Matías, buenas noches, ¿cómo te va?
Buenas noches, Carlos.
Profe, octava victoria en la carretera para Matias Almeyda desde que llegó a San José. Esta, por ser donde fue, porque el equipo viajó el mismo día del partido, con las complicaciones que eso implica en medio de una pandemia, y para hacer la tercera victoria consecutiva, y que ahora tienes 3 partidos consecutivos en casa, ¿cómo evalúas cuán especial es específicamente esta victoria con todos esos condimentos?
No, bueno, creo que es importante siempre las victorias, la manera más que nada. Creo que la manera fue de esa búsqueda de no entregarse, de insistir, de redoblar, digamos, la apuesta por intermedio de cambios más ofensivos, del sacrificio de cada uno de ellos. Y bueno, sabemos que nosotros tenemos que ser, de esta manera somos competitivos, de la otra manera creo que hay equipos en la lista mucho más fuertes que nosotros, pero bueno, de esta manera vamos a dar batalla y estamos con los pies sobre la tierra. Hay que ir despacio, mejorando cosas, siempre hay cosas por mejorar, pero bueno, son alegrías. Yo, como les dije a los jugadores, cada cosa que me llega hoy en la vida que refleje alegría para mí es sumamente importante y por eso se los agradezco tanto.
Thank you, Matias. One final question from John Rojas.
Thanks, Jake. Matías, gracias por el tiempo. Matías, además de los cambios ofensivos, Remedy un rato de central, Judson un rato de central, y la presión, me parece, en el segundo tiempo fue más intensa que en el primero. ¿Esto también fue por diseño o simplemente, como lo demás, lo fue leyendo en el partido?
No, nosotros teníamos una intención en el primer tiempo y bueno, cuando empezamos a perder, modificamos algunos movimientos y bueno, salieron bien, pero no dejábamos de tener un equipo muy peligroso en contra, que en su juego ofensivo realmente es complicado. Tienen un jugador como el número 8 de ellos que tiene un gran juego aéreo, que te rompe cualquier línea cabeceando. Y bueno, tomamos los recaudos necesarios, empezamos a ganar esa pelota, empezamos a ganar la segunda pelota, y desde ahí empezamos a tener, digamos, el volumen de juego que queríamos, más allá que íbamos perdiendo. Entonces, la paciencia, el orden, pero remarco la humildad que tienen estos chicos, realmente es lindo verlos. A mí me ocasiona mucha felicidad entrenarlos, y sobre todo cuando tenemos el premio de ganar es lindo. Para nuestro grupo es muy lindo.
All right. Thank you very much, Matias and Augustine. Congrats on the win and safe travels back to San Jose.
Thank you.
Well, I'm definitely going to be a little more reticent to challenge Alex Morgan on any of his opinions now, because according to Matias Almeyda, quote, "You analyze the game well," end quote.
Phil,
Alex,
Phil, I don't think he enjoyed my analysis as much last September. But I'm glad to hear that he is coming around to appreciate the work we do at the Aftershock now.
Yeah, well, certainly a sign of growth then, if that's the case. But I thought that was quite interesting how Matias talked about how the team is playing the role of his family at this moment, right? We know about the difficulties that Matias Almeyda has had to deal with recently with the passing of his father, and the team has gone out there and kind of become a something that gives him joy, something that has become a greater part of his life, not just the coaching and the the personnel aspect, but the actual being a family member for him.
The term he was using is agradecido. There's gratitude. He feel it's actually like this very beautiful thing. You don't hear coaches speak in these terms usually, particularly in the Anglophone world. But he keeps on talking about how much joy he gets from training his players, how much joy he gets from that family, and how grateful he is to do so. So for him, it really does feel like more of a calling rather than just a simple vocation. And that in some ways gets back to that original Asher Cohen article that we had earlier in the cycle about, for him, football is a cause and a purpose, as much as it is, a job where he's just, punching in his clock or whatever. And we got a lot more of that today. Ted Lasso is not a bad comparison in that sense. but he is wired so much hotter and more intense than Ted Lasso, because Almeyda has no chill, right? And that's part of the thing that we love about him, is that he is full heart on his sleeve at all times. But yeah, in the same way, it's kind of a deep vocation.
And I think I saw it in the moment after Chris Wondolowski scored the equalizer, when Wondo he sort of took a moment to orient himself, because Wondo, after he scores, is very, very excited. So he took a moment to orient himself, and then he lasered in on Matias Almeyda and ran straight across the field for a giant bear hug with Matias. And it's just those moments where you can see the connection in this squad, and where you can really sense that Matias is building a family, as he says. And honestly, I think sort of that buy-in and that sort of excitement translates across the TV. I mean, I'm having so much fun watching the Quakes this season, just because of the amount of risks they are taking. In that second half, to put on Wondolowski, Matias Almeyda took out a center back. I think it was Tanner Beeson, right? He took out Tanner Beeson to put on Chris Wondolowski. This is early in the season. He's still chasing those wins. He's subbing off a center back, throwing on Wondo, going all out attacking to get that victory. And it totally worked tonight, with the 2-1 comeback victory. And so even though they struggled in the first half, the question I asked him was, how he planned those subs for the second half. He took off both the fullbacks, who were both struggling. He put on Shea Salinas, he puts on Luciano Abacasis. I thought both of them added a lot when they came on. And then it's just about throwing as many men forward as they can. And, with that buy-in and with that willingness to take risks, it just makes the Quakes kind of fun to watch.
Something, we can put this up on the screen right now, but something that Marcelo just pointed out is something that I also noticed, is that he does not always go for the individual compliments unless he's specifically directed in that way. But Matias really did go for Wondo in particular, calling him one of our legends, the end of the club. And that's, that kind of, that relationship they have is something that's there. And I kind of want to propose something controversial. Maybe it's not controversial, but we'll find out in a second. There was not a lot of incomings and outgoings over the opposite. Well, there were a couple, but it was not a total roster overhaul by any stretch of the imagination. But one of the things that happened was the last remaining guys that weren't his guys left.
Like we have Wondolowski on now.
Yeah, we'll get Wondolowski in a second, but I think you all see where I'm going with that.
Mm-hmm.
It was, monumental for me. To be honest, even after the Houston game, the first 2 weeks, I probably had my worst 2 plays in my career back to back, and I can't be thankful enough for the teammates that I have that picked me up, and also the coaching staff. And I say Matias, and a lot of it is Matias, but it's his coaching staff as well, with Omar and Turco. And Guido as well. And so it's those guys really helped propel me, and so that's why I, wanted to repay them. They've been the wind behind my back, and I needed them these last couple of weeks. But I proud of this group and proud to be a part of it, and so very thankful for them.
Thank you, Wondo. Next question from Carlos Ramirez.
Hello, Chris. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Chris, again, man, we need those hats, brother. We need them. I can't find them anywhere. Help me out. What's up with that?
There's some limited. We got Wondo soccer, but it's I'll have to hook you guys up when we're back home. And
on a more serious note, Chris, is this team getting enough attention in the Bay Area? Because it's hard to find people, media, paying enough attention to a team that's leading the Western Conference, playing like it is, with young talent, with veteran talent, that's beating teams home and away in definite fashion. Does this team deserve more attention?
I think that we will be able to establish more attention as we continue to grow. Being a Bay Area diehard fan of everything, I think that you need to show that you have the good product. It's great watching the Warriors as they push for the playoffs and push for that A seed, and it's exciting watching them. The Giants, I believe are leading the West, and the A's are doing their thing, and so the Bay Area, you need to win. You should be winning. It's a great area. It's a great market. And I think that we need to continue to show what we have and what we can do. I think that we have a very exciting product, and when more eyes get to see us and watch us and see the product on the field and be able to see the results as well, I think that'll really be the catalyst to our attention and to to our success as well.
Thank you, Wondo. Next question from John Rojas.
Thank you, Jake. Hey, Chris. Matias keeps saying this year that you guys, with your willingness to give it all and your performances, are giving him and his family the happiness that he needs right now after losing his father. Are you guys aware that right now, for him, you guys are more than a team and football is more than a game?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very cliche to say, but we believe down. It doesn't need. I believe that it's family over biology. Sometimes, you don't need blood to be a family, and we have it. And so, just like how that whole staff and our team picked me up, we try to pick Matias up as well. We know that you always can't bring your 100% each day, and that's why a family will always have each other's backs. And we're brothers. We'll always battle on the field, fight. But when we get to the locker room, we're gonna hug each other. We're gonna have each other's back, and we're gonna fight tooth and nail for every inch. And we'll make sure that our teammate has each other back, and I have his. And that goes for Matias and his whole staff as well. The love is there, and we'll do anything we can to help fill that void. We know it's hard times for him. It's I can't imagine, and I hope I don't have to for a long time, but it's devastating. And so our heart's with him, our love's with him, but he makes us stronger, and I think we make him stronger as well.
Thank you, Wondo. We're going to take two more questions, starting with Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you very much. Chris, I have a little bit of a kind of a left field question, but in a game like this, when you're coming off the bench, the team is chasing the game, and you probably know that you're only going to get one or two looks, in limited minutes. Like, how are you able to kind of keep your nerve and keep your patience while, you're waiting for service from your teammates, or you're waiting for that rebound to pop up so you can hit that shot? Like, how does that work as you're, in your mindset as you're waiting for that chance to come, if it's going to come at all?
You have to stay optimistic, and that's something luckily as a striker, I can always be optimistic. I can always think that chance is coming to me, and go finish it and go make that run. And so I think that, I also had the opportunity to study the game. I think Cade absolutely grinded and wore down those two center backs, but playing in altitude, I noticed throughout the game that the ball would sail. It looked like chest, and it ended up at their neck or head. And so it sailed those extra 2 yards. And to be honest, when it left Fierro's in the second goal, when it left Fierro's foot, I had the patience and the wherewithal to stay there, because I believe I was just glad he took a step forward, and I would have done the same as well. I think that sea level, that ball gets there and he clears it, but I kind of stayed the course and was able to pick the point and finish it. And great ball by Fierro. Oh my gosh, what a ball, by the way. Random.
Thank you, Wondo. Last question from Carlos Eustace.
Wondo, good evening, and congratulations for the 2 goals. Walk me through the celebrations, because we saw with Osvaldo on the first week, and now you decide and go both times with Matias. Is that something that you guys have talked about within the team? Is it planned? Just a spur of the moment? Because it's really emotional. It's a really nice thing to see.
No, absolutely. Definitely not premeditated. It's just a pure emotion. For me, myself, I wanted, Matias is kind of the face of it. And so, you're the head of it, I should say. And I want to thank him just for giving the confidence. And that's what I just kept telling him. I was just, thank you for still believing in me, still giving me this chance and this opportunity. And, my other hug was for Omar. He's unbelievable. He works with the forwards and offensive guys, and he does so much work. And Matias gets a lot of the credit, and as he should. But it's I don't know. He has a great staff. The staff I think sometimes gets overlooked a little bit, but there's something special as well. And so for me, that was. Again, it wasn't a premeditated thing. It was just emotional, and I wanted to thank him. I want to thank him for the opportunity and the continued opportunity because wouldn't be here still without him.
All right, thank you very much, Wondo. Congrats on the goals and the victory.
Awesome, thanks, guys.
All right, I hope all the young soccer players out there were taking notes because that was a masterclass from Chris Wondolowski. He said he stayed the course there. I mean, he was almost, about to bite on that play in which Fierro sent the ball in, but he stayed the course. He positioned himself well. He scores the goal, and also he gives credit to Carlos Fierro. You can feel the connection with the players right now, the chemistry with these guys. So, pretty cool stuff to hear from Chris Wondolowski about his teammates.
I just think it's remarkable the self-awareness that Chris has to be able to describe that play in so much detail like that, and the exact thought process that went through his head in that play, how he sort of waited in that pocket of space and let the center back jump for the ball, miss the challenge, and then pop in right behind him. I mean, it's impressive that he's able to describe it that clearly. But, you could describe it to me a million times and I'd still never be able to do it. It's just the intuition that he has and sort of the sixth sense that he has to get in behind in those areas. I mean, it was a sort of a tap in finish, but you could see it in the first goal too, how he just was in the exact right spot at the right time. And that's not a coincidence. And that's how I think he's been able to score, what is it now, 169 goals in Major League Soccer. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And honestly, he could do it until he's 50 because it doesn't take a ton of physicality. It's all mental. And I think this is a funny comment here from Michael. He says Wondo would wait 80 minutes on the field for a chance to score. Now at least he gets to sit down while he waits. And I think that's funny, but there's also like an element of truth to it, right? Because he's a brilliant super sub to bring in those last 10 minutes when the defenders are tired and the Quakes are pushing for a goal. I think this is a brilliant new role that he has found for himself in this team.
I mean, the funny thing is, if you talk to Wondo, he'll make self-deprecating comments about like not being the smartest guy. He's like, yeah, I went to Chico. Like, I'm not the best at interviews or whatever. But like, what's going on in his brain there is really true genius material. Like he is a genius soccer player, and he doesn't have he has none of the physical gifts of Cade Cowell, right? Cade Cowell has like every gift that Wondo doesn't. But what he's doing there, the geometry of the game for him is just operating on a different level for everybody else. He spent the entire game watching and studying and kind of trying to figure out the tendencies and what was going on, and he figured out how to break him more like it was a chess game. And it actually reminded me, tell me if you guys resonate with this, that moment in that big Bulls documentary that the ESPN did, that Last Dance, where Dennis Rodman is talking about the way that he studies rebounds and the geometry of like how rebounds, come off one way or the other. And it was just clear that he was a savant of rebounding and thought about it at a kind of a deeper level than anybody else did. That's Wondo here. Wondo, for both of those goals, is making a read on the geometry of the game based on the particular conditions. And all of that's decided ahead of time. And that's why I love when people are like, oh, Wondo, tap merchant. Like, yeah, he is a tap-in merchant. He's a genius at it. Like, he generates these tap-ins that nobody else does. There's a reason he has 168 now.
If we were on around the horn right now, Colin Etnire, you would get like 10 of those little dings, ding, 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 because you like nailed the comparison there with Dennis Rodman. I hadn't even thought of that. That is like the perfect comparison. But it's amazing. It is genius. It's exactly what it is. How, you know, Dennis Rodman explains, I could sense where the ball was going to go. It got to the point like he wasn't measuring or anything. He just had a sense of where it was going to go. And we can see that in Chris Wondolowski as well. That's like the genius of Wondolowski, right?
And I think that's what makes me really, really glad that he is around this season. Not only because he's going to put in hopefully another 10 goals this season. I think that was one of the predictions I had early in preseason. I went on the Tectonic Takes podcast and asked me for my Tectonic take, and it was that, you know, Chris Wondolowski would score another double-digit haul this season, and you know he's 1/5 of the way there already. But it's that and the fact that he is teaching Cade Cowell how to do this over the off season. He spent a lot of time working on Cade Cowell with his finishing, and you know, just Cade being able to absorb all that wisdom in watching and replicating that movement over and over and over again in practice is, I think, one of the big reasons why his finishing has improved so much over the off season. And I think, you know, I think that put Cade in a really, really strong position to continue to develop his game and turn into an elite goal scorer.
I'd like to take
by the way,
shift to... Oh, go ahead, Colin.
Just before, a very quick one. I love the fact that he went out and shouted out some of the assistants, not just Omar Zarif, who he works with the attackers, but the strength coach, Guido Bonini. I think I have that right here. You know, he was like, let's dig into that family a little bit deeper than Almeyda. Almeyda is the head, he's the face of it, but you know, we have this entire staff supporting us. So for those of you who aren't tracking, you know, or who don't think about those other guys, he's saying like these other guys they matter. They're part of the people who you know, get us pushed along. But anyway, go ahead, Phil. Transition.
So I was just going to transition to another part of the field, and the ref might be the one who actually wears the watch and keeps the time for the match. But sometimes it seems like Eric Remedi is the guy that's doing it, because when the Quakes are in possession, he is the one that is holding onto the ball, you know, absorbing the pressure from the opposing team. And in cases where they are playing on defense, perhaps getting a yellow card, as we saw in this match. So Brian points to the fact that another yellow card for Remedi, and he will be suspended for a match, right? And I think there's like a $250 fine or something like that associated with it. But also, guys, we do have Judson finding his form as well. So look, if it means that the Quakes are going to slow down an attack that is going to cause a really dangerous opportunity for the opposing team, I think a yellow card is necessary. And in this case, this type of professional foul is going to be a huge benefit for the team. So just going into the discussion about the midfield here, guys, what do we think about the Quakes you know, being able to pick up on RSL's press when perhaps it wasn't something they had anticipated coming into this match, and Eric Remedi and Jackson Yule showing poise on the ball and being able to distribute and work their way out of that through buildup from the back?
I mean, I guess I'm in the minority here in that I'm still not entirely convinced by that midfield partnership. I think individually they both had outstanding games, but they really weren't able to control the midfield in the way that I think Jackson Yule and Judson were able to last season. And I mean, Eric Remedi is sort of ever present. He's all over. He's dropping deep into the spaces to distribute the ball. He's winning tackles in the middle. But I just haven't seen the connection from him and Jackson yet. And I think that somebody said it in the Quakes Epicenter Slack. And if you become a patron to Quakes Epicenter, because that's the game chat that we have in our Slack, is a really fun place for us to share sort of our live commentary and answer. But somebody said it's sort of like a race against time between Remedi accumulating that yellow card suspension and Judson returning from injury, right? And I think we saw Judson again today slot in at center back actually late in the game when Matias Almeyda, I think, was sort of content after Wondo scored the equalizer. But I think that there is a chance that Judson we will see him in the midfield again very shortly if either Remedi gets a yellow or I think Almeyda might just think at some point, I'm going to see if the Jackson and Judson can sort of pick up where they left off last season and improve their partnership in the middle again.
I love it because it's another dimension that the Quakes have. It's another approach to the game. I think that's important too. Before we get to Carlos Fierro in the press conference, I want to really quickly do some housekeeping here. Earlier in the chat on YouTube, I just looked back on it right now. We had a comment from RG. He said, didn't know this channel was a thing, just subscribe. So if you are watching right now, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you are enjoying our post-game analysis. Another thing, Alex, you mentioned the Slack. Oh, before we get to that, we have Matias Almeyda. I mean, we have Carlos Fierro.
Go ahead and get started with Alex Morgan.
Unmuted. Muted.
Felicidades por la victoria y por la asistencia. Dice que el equipo ha marcado 10 goles en 4 partidos. ¿Cuál es la diferencia entre la parte ofensiva de este equipo este año en comparación de otros partidos de la temporada pasada?
Hola, muchas gracias. Buenas noches. Sí, contentos por la victoria. El equipo bajó los brazos y peleó hasta el final. Sí, como dices, la ofensiva está muy bien, pero creo que también la defensiva hizo un gran trabajo. Estamos contentos por ello y no es nada más que el pasar del tiempo, nos vamos conociendo cada vez más. Eso ha ayudado mucho al crecimiento del equipo y se ha notado en cada partido.
First of all, thank you and good evening to everyone. I think it's just credit to the entire team as a whole. You're right in the sense that the offensive players are doing a lot better, but I think it's also credit to the defensive players tonight. And it's just going to take time. We're spending a lot more time bonding together, getting to know one another. So really happy where the team is now, and we're going to continue to go on that path.
Thank you, Carlos. Next question from John Rojas.
Sí, Carlos, en el segundo tiempo, cuando vienen los cambios que hacen tomar el riesgo, Eric Remedy va de central, ustedes se reacomodan, es como ustedes adentro sienten el mensaje, como aquí vamos, o sea, nos vamos al todo o al nada ahora sí.
Sí, así es. Ya abajo el marcador y el técnico hace los cambios, ¿no? Y cuando hace esos cambios, uno ya sabe que tiene que ir por todo. Tenemos un técnico que le gusta ir por todo y a ganar. A nadie le gusta perder y ese fue el mensaje, fue muy claro. Así como dices, Eric fue de central, yo fui de contención, hubo cambios por las bandas, adelante. Era un equipo ofensivo totalmente y bueno, gracias a Dios salieron los cambios perfectamente y se ganó el partido.
The question was on how the team's mentality changed towards the end of the game, and Fierro responded, "Yes, you're right. I think it's the changes that the team made on the second half. The team completely became a lot more offensive. Eric and I switched. There were new players on the sides, and our coach is just the type of coach that goes all in. He wants to give it all. He wants to go for the victory, for the win. So I think it's credit to all of those things, and thanks to God, we were able to secure the win tonight."
Thank you, Carlos. We'll take 3 more questions, starting with Carlos Ramirez.
Tocayo, ¿cómo te va? Un fuerte abrazo.
Gracias, Tocayo. Todo bien, gracias.
Primero, felicidades por el embarazo.
Muchas gracias. Gracias, Tocayo.
En segundo lugar, explícale un poco a la gente que no ha jugado fútbol de forma profesional, que somos la mayoría, ¿qué es lo más difícil de viajar el mismo día de un partido?
Obviamente sí es complicado, ¿no? Levantarte un poco más temprano. Desayunamos en el club alrededor de las 8:15, 8:30 am. Viajamos, llegamos al hotel, a la 1 por ahí tuvimos comida, después a las 3 otra vez comida. Es un poco complicado ya que no tienes el mismo descanso, ¿no? Pero bueno, también viajamos en charter, La liga está haciendo todo lo posible para tener esa comunidad y que no sea tan pesado los viajes. Y bueno, tuviste al final un poco cansados, pero peleamos todo el partido.
So for everyone, the question was on the complications on same-day flights, to which Carlos responded, yes, I think there are a couple of challenges. This morning, we had breakfast with the team back in San Jose. We got on the plane. We got to the hotel on the same day. We had a couple meals, and then we headed to the stadium after. So there are a little bit of challenges. You have less rest. Regardless, the league is also doing their part to help us in that sense. We are flying on charter planes, so that is definitely a plus. Towards the end of the day, we are a little tired, but I think overall we're doing what we can, and it's going well so far.
Thank you. Two more questions, starting with Carlos Eustace.
Bueno, buenas noches. Felicidades por el triunfo y creo que también te puedes sentir completo con tu rendimiento, no solamente en este partido, sino en los últimos, ¿no? Creo que un poquito el hecho de haber tenido una pretemporada muy exigente, de irse acomodando con las nuevas piezas, de tener un poquito más de ayuda con piezas como Eric Remedi, ha sacado lo mejor de ti. ¿Cómo te sientes? Hoy das una asistencia, el primer gol pues básicamente sale después de un disparo tuyo. ¿Cómo sientes que va tu rendimiento en estas últimas victorias?
Hola, muchas gracias. Contento, sí, estoy contento con el rendimiento, como siempre lo he dicho, trato de dar por ciento, entre de cambio, estoy de inicio, siempre trataré de dar lo mejor de mí, como te digo, estoy contento por el momento que estoy pasando. Obviamente me gustaría meter gol, ¿no? Pero bueno, con paciencia ya llegará. Mientras el equipo siga ganando, uno va a estar contento. Entonces, esto es trabajo de equipo y vamos para adelante todos juntos.
The question was on his performance dating back to preseason earlier this year, to which Fierro responded, yes, I'm very happy with my performance so far. I think I've improved ever since the beginning of the year. Obviously, I would like to score a goal, but I'm very happy with the assist tonight, and that's just my contribution to the team. This is a team effort, so we're very happy and excited where we are right now.
Thank you, Carlos. And the last question of the night goes to Alicia Rodriguez.
Thanks very much. Carlos, congrats. I wanted to ask a little bit about the assist in particular. Wondolowski said that he really complimented your ball. He said it was a great ball. It looked like one of those like really sweet hits. And Wondo also noted that the ball seemed like it was sailing, especially at that end of the field. Did you have to make any kind of on-the-fly adjustments when you put that ball up in the air, or was it kind of you were just going for it on adrenaline in the final minutes? Like walk us through the assist a little bit, please. Thanks.
La pregunta de ella es de tu asistencia al gol de Wondo. Dice ella que se vio que era una pelota muy limpia en ese sentido, que si puedes practicar un poco más a fondo sobre cómo lo viviste, tu reacción, qué fue lo que hiciste antes de mandar el centro.
Sí, fue un pase que le dan a Lucho, donde la deja pasar y me cae a mí en los pies. Volteo rápidamente al área y veo que hay compañeros ahí. Matías, escucho el grito de Matías que me dice, tírala. Entonces, sin pensarlo, le doy un toque al balón y yo el centro, ¿no? Bien sé que Andy y Wondo siempre están ahí peleando las bolas y bueno, Wondo, como ustedes lo conocen, es la que tiene la meta y bueno, gracias a Dios se la puso en la cabeza y la metió.
Yeah, I think it's I believe it started from a pass from Lucho, who then sent it over to me. It landed on my feet, and I just took it over. And I remember hearing Matias yell over and say, just cross the ball. So I did. And I always know that Wondo or Andy or both are always there in the area ready to receive service. So thanks to God, it landed on Wondo, and he was able to make it in.
All right. Thank you very much, Carlos. Congrats on the victory and safe travels back to San Jose.
Love that from Carlos Fierro. Matias says, kick it. That's wonderful.
Hit
Anyway,
it.
I see people
Hit
bagging
it.
on Carlos Fierro's hair in the chat, and I just want to say, like, I think that's the look that we should all be going for right now, considering that sweet cross that he's sending. But anyway, Colin, you have something that you wanted to mention statistically about Carlos Fierro.
I got to credit Asher here. He says that FOTMob had so. I'm one of the people who is regularly skeptical of Carlos Fierro, so you can all rub this in my face that when I'm wrong. And it's usually the frustration comes mostly from the fact of, the amount of money he's paid versus his quality on the ball, which can kind of come and go. But one thing that is inarguable is his movement and his effort and his defensive work. So what we have here on FOTMob is that he was 6 of 8 in duels today, 2 of 2 in aerial duels, an interception and 4 recoveries. That's from a winger. That's from a wide player. And that's why he's on the field. And of course, he does occasionally come up with those big moments of, technical attacking work, like that excellent cross into Chris Wondolowski. But even if he's frustrating for 80 minutes on the ball, he's doing that kind of work off the ball. And that's where his value is.
And I thought it was interesting how he gave a shout out to Matias Almeyda. He said that in that moment, his head wasn't really facing the goal, so he didn't know what the picture looked like in the box. But Matias shouted, "Cross the ball!" And so, on the sort of turn of a dime, he launched a gorgeous, cross-field pass and crossed right to Wondo's head. And so I thought that shout out was interesting. And I'm glad that Matias kept him on the field for that moment. I'm glad that Matias had faith in him, because I was saying in the Slack, the Quakes Epicenter Patron Slack, that I thought he should be the first sub because, he was sort of quiet. He wasn't really contributing much going forward. But as you say, Colin, his work rate off the ball is, really a huge asset to this team. And the amount that he runs, it gets himself in the right spaces. That's really important. And even more so as the clock ticks down, as the game gets late, when a lot of other players are maybe losing a little bit of focus, and there's sort of more spaces to exploit like that.
So I just because I was making this point, much earlier on, there are tactical elements here, but really there are certain coaches that they're trainers and they're tacticians. There's other coaches that are, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but they're more like cult leaders, right? They're people who, who you want to charge into battle with them no matter what. And there's a lot of really good coaches that are like that. They're managers. Almeyda is that guy. One of the things, though, that I was going to say about the changes that we saw in this offseason is you had the last remaining guys from that Almeyda inherited that weren't his guys and weren't on board with the project, that didn't really buy into this concept of family. Nick Lima clearly never did. Kasia and Vaco, I think, probably never did. Husin, I don't know if that was a personality conflict or just doesn't really fit the system. But, the guys who weren't really in all left. And the guys who replaced him are all people who had connections to Almeyda before. So now you have a squad exclusively of guys who buy into that family ethos. And that could be the difference. That could be the what this offseason was about, was, because again, it didn't feel like we, added huge, really talented pieces all over the pitch to remake the roster on a tactical or technical level. Although there were some good additions to depth, it felt much more like it was creating the exact perfect environment for Almeyda. And that's why I keep saying this season is going to be, for good and for bad, a true reflection of what an Almeyda team is.
Okay, let's do a bit of housekeeping really quickly one more time, and then I'm going to throw it to you guys for your final thoughts, and we're going to get on out of here. So if you are watching right now, obviously you know that we have our post-game analysis every time on YouTube after the matches, but we also have a Twitter account that is active through Quakes Epicenter. So even though this is the Aftershock, we are an affiliate of Quakes Epicenter. So if you go to www.quakesepicenter.com, you can find articles from our great writers like Colin Etnire and Alex Morgan and Asher and Robert Jonas and all kinds of great content on there. If you want to support the show, if you want to support the website and Quakes Epicenter, you can join our Patreon. For $2 a month, you can become a member and you get early access to articles. You get access to the images that are taken by Alex's brother, Aaron Morgan, who does a fantastic job. We've seen some really cool stuff on there. Nice pictures of Cade Cowell have just been uploaded onto the website. There are also other options for $5. You can also join our Patreon Slack, which is a lot of fun. You can talk to us. You can talk to other members who are on there as well. And for $15 a month, you can check this all on the website. There are some other great things that we offer as well. I think that about sums it up for that stuff, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to whoever would like to give some final thoughts, final takes here, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Neither one of you.
Well, I just went, so I'll give it to Alex first.
Alex Morgan, what you got?
Sure, I'll take it. I mean, that was a smash and grab victory, as Colin said at the top of the show. I think the Quakes struggled in the first half. I was ready to come on this show and sort of lament their woes. And, we were talking about in the pregame how, the Quakes were really fun in the first three matches. They had a couple standout performances from Cade Cowell. They scored a lot of goals. It was a really good time at PayPal Park. And, this run of games in May, this next stretch of matches was when we would find out whether they really are a good team. And, I was sort of ready to come on the show and say, well, they're probably going to struggle a lot this season because, they're going to get exploited down the middle by teams who play a mid block. And, their defense is a little too shaky. But they turned it around. And I think that, the offensive firepower that they have, the options that they have going forward is the catalyst for that. That's the reason why the Quakes will succeed this season. He had a couple good moments. He fired a couple shots, but he didn't, have the sort of goal scoring performance that he had against FC Dallas and DC United. When he gets shut down, they have Chris Wondolowski to come on. They have Andy Rios to come on. They have Carlos Fierro. They have trophies. All those options up top, I think, will make this team really, really good. And I think if you add maybe another piece to the defense, a DP center back has kind of been banging that drum for a couple of weeks now. I think that they could go really far this season. But look, maybe Matias Almeyda would look at this team. Look at the table right now. Where are the Quakes? They're top of the Western Conference right now. They have, 10 goals in 4 games, 3 wins and a loss. Maybe Matias Almeyda looks at this team and goes, I'm pretty content with where the squad is at right now. Maybe he does that. Maybe the Quakes ownership will look at this and go, we're not going to invest in a team that's already winning. But from my perspective, this is the time to double down. This is the time for Jesse Fiorinelli and John Fisher, the ownership, to realize this is their moment. This is their season to really push for it. And I think if you add a couple more pieces to this team, they're going to be really, really strong contenders this year.
You did the thing that I forgot to do. Look at the standings, folks. Go and look at those standings. Quakes are pushing for the Supporter Shield early on in the season. Hey, we will be back on Wednesday. That is May 12th. After the game against the Seattle Sounders. That's a home game. That's going to be at 7:30, which means that we will be on around 9:30. And some folks were asking about Jamon Moore. He will be back on the show on Wednesday. One thing that I want to note is that as we are doing this during the season, we will be rotating hosts as well. So we'll have some other folks on who are affiliated with Quakes Epicenter as well. So, for example, I will not be here next Wednesday, but we will have somebody here to take over the hosting duties. So it's as simple as that. And then, one last thing. Twitter Spaces. One, I did not shout out Alex Morgan for being freaking awesome in the MLS Twitter Space that was hosted by the dudes at Extra Time Radio. Way to make us proud, Alex. Great job. And also, we do impromptu Twitter Spaces as well. We did one today, hosted by Colin Etnire, me, Ane, Alex, and we had Jamon for a while. So be sure to keep a lookout on Twitter for those as well. Again, at Quakes Epicenter, you can find us on there. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. It was an awesome game. I had a lot of fun having you guys join me for the show tonight on Quakes Epicenter, the Aftershock podcast and show. Good night.
Night, everybody.